At Ainsley, great report. And according to the National Journal's Ron Fournier, who will join us later in the program, the biggest threat to Hillary Clinton's presidential aspirations is not her email scandal, but the controversy over donations to the foundation. He says, follow the money. Here with reaction, a Syrian-American Christian activist, Nareen Anwaya, is with us. And from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, Fox News contributor Jammu Green, and the author of a brand new book, which, by the way, I highly recommend. It's called ISIS Exposed, Beheading, Slavery, and the Hellish Reality of Radical Islam. Eric Stakelbeck is back with us. All right, Jammu, let me start with you. Look at Saudi Arabia. Here's Bill Clinton saying, I'm very impressed with Saudi Arabia's new record on women's rights. Let's see. Women can't drive. Women must cover. Women can't be out and seen in public without men they're not married to. And he's justifying taking money from that country, millions and millions of dollars. Hillary says she's the women's president, and she takes money from that country with the treatment of women. Any problem with that?
She's not the women's president yet. And I don't have a problem with a country coming to the aid of people in Haiti or in Philippines after
this isn't coming to the aid. No, the person that
stop. The Clinton Foundation is helping people around the world.
The aid is going to the Clinton Foundation, and they're taking money from countries, Eric, that have horrific human rights records as it relates to women.
Absolutely, Sean. As it relates to women, as it relates to support for
Christians,
terrorism.
minorities.
Hillary Clinton, the feminist icon. We've been hearing that for 2 decades now. Why doesn't she lead a movement stirring up people in these countries to take women's rights back? Actually, not taken back. They've never had. When is she advocating, Jammu, for women's rights in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in the broader Muslim world?
Has she ever openly criticized these countries that gave millions to her and said their treatment of women is abhorrent and despicable? Has she ever taken that stand?
Yeah, she has.
Give me the words.
You know,
when?
20 years ago when she was in Beijing, and she said for the first time, women's rights are human rights. I don't think Beijing's
on the list.
And she equated those two things. She's been advocating for this.
Did she ever say it about the country she took money from? You're not answering.
Y'all doing on International Women's Day, because I don't understand where all this interest is in international women issues just because it's Hillary Clinton's.
These countries, Nareen, are very, very clear.
Yes.
And their mistreatment of women. Hillary Clinton is silent in confronting them and takes millions. This, I think, is going to be a massive issue.
It is definitely a massive issue, Sean, and what we are tired of is for people making comments that have truly no idea what's happening in the Middle East. As an Assyrian American, women are completely mistreated. Not only mistreatment is not even the word for how women are being treated in the Middle East. And these are the countries that we are accepting millions and millions of dollars worth of foreign donations. Yes, the Clinton Foundation. And we should not be accepting money. It's considered bribery. It's considered they're buying time. Women are publicly executed. They're publicly executed in the streets of Saudi Arabia. Women aren't allowed any rights whatsoever. Education, they're educating them, but then they're not even allowing them to drive. What type of human rights is this? She had said in 1995 in Beijing that human rights are women's rights and women's rights are human rights. I would like to ask Mrs. Clinton, where have you been since thousands of women, especially in the Middle East, have been mass slaughtered? Our young girls are being sold into sex slavery. We're being beheaded. They're being treated like worse than animals. Where have you been if you're an advocate for women's rights? I believe those are just words. I do not believe anything she says. I do not believe she's a human rights advocate. I don't believe a lot of things she says. And honestly, accepting millions of dollars worth of foreign donations is horrible. And she's contributing to these crimes, because that is not a way to condemn these nations that are under suspicion of a lot of things that are happening, and that is not a way for an authority in our administration to behave.
All right, Dr. Jasser, very powerful words from Nareen. Did they buy, in other words, did these Muslim countries buy Hillary's silence?
Well, all we need to do is, why else would they invest the money? You look at what happens internally, Sean. These countries suffocate free speech. They put in prison people who question Islam and want reform. So at the end of the day, why are they dumping millions while Qatar has slavery internally? Saudi Arabia doesn't allow churches to be built, prevents any type of freedom whatsoever, let alone religious freedom. So at the end of the day, what they're getting is blasphemy laws in the West. And the Clinton Foundation, and I think this conversation is so important because we operate on pennies meetings at the American Islamic Forum because we don't take foreign donations, because this is the greatest conflict in the 21st century is against political Islam globally. And the new evil empire is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And when you wonder why the president won't say Islamic, and President Clinton right now is saying, oh, they're working with us against ISIS, Qatar and Saudi Arabia were funding ISIS-light, if not ISIS themselves, before the world started to pay attention to them.
Let me go back to Eric. You know what's fascinating about this is if you go back to the last election, and the left was so up in arms about Sandra Fluck and people paying $9 a month for a woman's birth control, and it was a war on women. Mitt Romney had women's resumes that he wanted, people who he wanted to hire. And then you compare it to the treatment of women in the countries that they are taking this money from, and Hillary Clinton is virtually silent. She's never gone after these countries. So, I mean, how are we supposed to interpret that?
Sean, it's a literal, we talk about a war on women the Democrats talk about so often. There's a literal jihad against women throughout the Muslim world. The way we can interpret it is the same way we can interpret the actions or the inactions of the Obama administration. Look, they don't want to confront nasty things that are going on in the Islamic world head on. That's pretty clear. Hillary Clinton, for example, kind of echoed the administration sentiment. They say, look, terrorism and ISIS is rising because of lack of jobs, lack of opportunity. Hillary Sean gave a speech at Georgetown University a few months ago saying we need to have empathy for our enemies. So let's have empathy for ISIS while they're beheading us.
You know, Jammu, I don't have a lot of time left. I'll give you the last 30 seconds, but how you can defend that, it's really indefensible because she's taking money and they basically have bought off her silence. You might talk about what words she said in China. When has she ever uttered a word about Saudi Arabia, Oman, the UAE, or these other countries? Ever.
You should read her book. So I advise everyone in your audience
to tell us what she says. What did she say?
She has actually negotiated with the Saudi Arabian government to
They treat women like garbage. They can't drive.
From being married off, and they listen to her.
Oh,
but you know what? There are a lot of people who want their 15 seconds of fame and talking about women's issues. It has never left their lips until it
sounds like for money you can buy
Hillary Clinton talks about women every single day, her entire career.
Not about women in Saudi Arabia.
I think it's very telling that no Muslim reformers are engaged with the Clinton Foundation. Why? Because that's the way Qatar and Saudi Arabia wants it. Where is the reform voice inside the Clinton Foundation?
All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. By the way, ISIS Exposed, this is Eric's new book. It is a great book, and congratulations.